I think the greatest achievement has been chronicling the Arab American theater. My first book was about Arab American theater specifically. And up to that point, there had only been scattered articles, essays, and different writings that had been done. So my goal was to bring it all together into a coherent history. And that history dates back to the Rabita al-Qalamiyya, which was the PEN group, the PEN League, which was founded by Khalil Gibran and Mikhail Naimi. And this group was seminal to not only the Arab American literature movement, but they were also playwrights. Amin Rihani, Khalil Gibran, and Mikhail Naimi were all playwrights as well. And I wanted to uncover that history of the Arab American theater going back to that time of the early 1900s, because I think too often we think of Gibran and those other writers as the sort of spiritual mystic writers. And even to this day, you can't find their works in literature. When you go to a bookstore, you find them in mysticism or astrology, all these very strange places where they really don't belong. They do belong in literature. And I think that's part of the Orientalism that has taken place, where these writers have been subjected to being othered by the American literary establishment. So my goal was to first place them within the American arts and letters, and second, to place them within American theater history, because they were playwrights. Now, their plays were not produced in their lifetimes, and that's unfortunate, but that's something that Arab Americans have been contending with for over a century now, trying to get their works produced, which is always difficult. So that, I believe, is if I did have a major contribution, it would be that, and also my direction of Arab American plays and working with Arab American theater artists. For me, that is so seminal to the work. So it's a balance between the academic work on the one hand and the creative work on the other, and having those two worlds feed one another very in a very positive and very, hopefully, forward-moving fashion, in order that we can create this genre as it develops over time. One of the greatest handicaps to those early Arab American playwrights were that their plays were written but never performed. Now we have a similar situation where most mainstream American theaters are not that interested in performing Arab American works unless they have great roles for non-Arab actors in them. So that means fewer roles for Arab or Arab American actors, unless the plays are written in a very American style, if you will, in the mode of, say, an Arthur Miller or a Tennessee Williams type of American realism. Also, the fact that the plays are dealing with specific issues that are common to the Arab American diaspora. And of course, many theaters, mainstream theaters, and many other groups have this problem as well, whether they're African American groups, Latinx groups, Asian American groups, Native American groups. The mainstream audiences are predominantly, for lack of a better term, Anglo or white. And therefore, the plays will mainly be geared towards that audience, because there's such a small audience of those quote unquote minority groups that attend the theater. So what happens is you're in a double bind where on the one hand you want the plays produced, but on the other there's only one slot for the one ethnic play a year. And of course you have all of the different groups vying for that one slot, or maybe two slots if you're lucky. So you have African Americans and Asian Americans and Arab Americans and all types of groups fighting for these two slots a season. So what ends up happening is we have a great opportunity for these companies like Golden Thread Productions, like Silk Road Rising, like Noor Theater. These companies are so vital because they finally created a space specifically for Middle Eastern American stories, generally, or Arab American stories in particular. And by doing so, they began to build a body of work that developed around Arab American playwrights, but also a group of actors and designers and others who were either associated with the culture or from the culture, that were also involved in creating the works. And this led to an even deeper and more interesting production ability for these works to be done with, say, people speaking Arabic properly on stage, or Arabic being written properly in the programs or on subtitles or surtitles. Other groups like Ajel Theater in Dearborn are very important, of course, because they also create works in Arabic, and they speak specifically to Arab audiences who love hearing the Arabic language and who love laughter and comedy and music. And so when we see all of these different groups creating these works that are specifically for Arab Americans, we begin to see the opportunity for our stories to be told, quote unquote, authentically. Now, of course, authenticity is a charged word and it can mean many different things to many people.